Elisabeth, how would you describe Sweden's engagement in agriculture, rural development, and food systems? And if you could share also, what are the current priorities of your government?
As you might have noticed, we have a new government in Sweden, since September. So it's a little bit too early yet to tell about what the differences will be compared to the previous focus on development aid for agriculture and rural development. What they have said is that there is going to be leave the foreign aid target to a fixed amount, but not going below 0.8% of the BNI. And I also think that trade will become more important, trade collaborations for aid in the future. And if we look historically, I think Swedish contributions to development aid has been around 5% of the total budget that really is focused directly to agriculture and rural development. And that goes, for example, to supporting cooperatives in the rural development. Historically, there's also been a lot of focus on more of the agronomy type of development aid, and now more integrated with other strategies towards economic development, and also on the climate and environmental side of matters. About 90% of that funding goes to multilateral and to civil society organizations. And geographically, the main majority of this goes to Africa and the MENA region.
How do you see Sida's priorities blend with other members of the donor community? How do you collaborate and coordinate with others? And could you share some examples, please?
We used to have a close tie to the UK until Brexit, probably. But now more of the coordination is shaped in the European Union. So this is where we look for like-minded colleagues that share the perspectives that we have. So Sida has 5 perspectives that guide the work on Swedish aid, which is poverty, focus, right-based, adding a conflict perspective, equality, and environment and climate. And then it also depends on thematic areas where we collaborate. So I think in general, Norway and Canada, we have a lot of collaboration. We also work together with partner organizations. We are interested in supporting the One UN initiatives and NGOs as well. So as part of that, with NORAD, for example, Norway, we've supported the Rural Women's Economic Empowerment, which is a collaboration through UN Women, FAO, IFAD, UNDP in Niger, for example. For the Scandinavians, we have also some history together, and so we also talk a lot together. We have developed our strengths based on our own development. So, for example, in Finland is strong on forestry, and Norway on fishery and aquaculture, and Sweden on the cooperative organizations.
With such important crises happening right now, how is Sweden balancing the short-term emergency needs with building long-term resilience? What is your agency doing, and how is it working also multilaterally to respond?
We want to see more seamless transitions between humanitarian and development contributions. And I think especially in fragile context with this prolonged crisis as part of already existing issues that were before the Ukraine crisis happened in the Sahel, for example. Something that I personally would love to see more of is to be able to be more on the forecasting issues. We know that El Niño and La Niña has been important before in terms of food security or food insecurity, and connecting that to conflict situations and how that plays out, I think is really important to focus more on. So in this regard, we support and encourage the collaboration with WFP, IFAD, and FAO, for example, and we would like to see more of that. And also adding more of the sustainability issues in the humanitarian field. Something that Sida has been doing, and thanks to some of the support that we give to a Swedish network called Siani Network, which is a network of researchers in Sweden and in the South, to learn from our partner organizations and how they responded during the pandemic. What we have seen is that small-scale producers with very diverse systems are able to maintain food production with very limited resources. We are very concentrated right now on solving immediate crisis, but while we are doing that, we might have another one coming on top of that. So just maintaining the long-term perspective, I think, is really important.
How do you see the future of food systems?
It's important to learn from what's happened recently, both about how donors and smallholder farmers responded to the pandemic and this new crisis after the Ukraine war. And it's critical, really, really critical, that we don't build in old errors when we do the transition in the food systems. We've had the UN Food Systems Summit, which I think has created lots of action plans in some countries. These we need to make sure we contribute to the needs of the specific countries, because the contexts are very different in different countries, even within a country, between rural and urban situations, for example. I think we need to look at a value chain perspective and also ensure that the investments that we provide are not undermining small-scale producers. As I mentioned, they are really the strength in these crises. But I hope that we will be able to think more broadly about food security in a food systems perspective. So we can work more on creating an awareness about where interventions can make more impact, looking at how that affects other investments on the rest of the value chain. What we could do is to identify more of where the weakest links are and where we can nudge the system into more sustainable and productive directions. And I think also the donor platform has collected a lot of good guidance here with a website now, which has more of the really interesting contributions to help us on food systems approaches. I just listen to the voices of FAO and the World Bank and OECD and say, well, this is what we need to look more at. And I think that will direct the future for us.
Elisabeth, what would you like small-scale farmers and the younger generation to know? What should give them hope for tomorrow?
Actually, I was a small-scale farmer and a youth myself when I grew up, and my grandfather told me there is no future in agriculture. And I think my whole life I've worked with agriculture in different ways still, but not as a farmer. And this is what I think is the future. There is so much, everybody needs to eat, and we need to eat healthy. And so there are so many ways we can work with agriculture. There are so many brilliant futures for youth. I just hope that they will be able to attend more and contribute in our different meetings with donors also, and also in these big events. We know they will attend in COP meetings, for example, and hopefully next year when we also will work more on the UN Food Systems Summit, the follow-up, I think then that's an opportunity for them again to be telling their stories about how they have responded during the additional crisis now because of the Ukraine war. And they are essential